Nobody likes throwing away money, and when you waste food, that's exactly what you're doing. And I will admit, I've not always been the best steward of my resources. I might buy some strawberries and plan to use them, and they go bad before I get it done. But I have learned a few little hacks to help me save money on things that I normally buy. So in this video, I'm going to give you a few strategies that you can use to move towards a no-waste kitchen. And this video is actually a collaboration between me and Leona Dooley at Ebony, Ivy, and Thyme in the Kitchen. So when you're done here, go on over there and see what she's got to share with you. And be sure to tell her that Denise sent you. And if you're here from there, welcome. How many of you throw away your food scraps, particularly scraps of, say, scrapings of your carrots, your onions, and celery that's maybe a little bit past its prime? Tell me in the comment section below. I used to throw all of that out, but I've learned that you can save those carrot scrapings, those onion skins, and those celery scraps in the freezer, and you can make your own vegetable broth. And I buy chicken or vegetable broth at the grocery store quite a bit, or at least I used to. Now I make my own. This is a bag of carrot peelings, onion skins, and celery that's just a little bit worse for wear. I keep this bag in the freezer, and when it's full, or if I get a couple of bags, I'll make vegetable broth. And today is one of those days that I have to sort out my fridge. It is at 6s and 7s, and I'm sure I'll find a few things in there, like maybe some green peppers that are a little bit worse for wear, and they will go perfectly well in the vegetable broth. I bought these green onions or spring onions several weeks ago, intending to use them on a Taco Tuesday. I forgot they were in there, or for whatever reason I didn't get them used up, and now you can see they're just a little bit worse for wear. So I'm going to go ahead and get them chopped up and get them prepped, and I will use them tomorrow on Taco Tuesday. But instead of throwing away this part, the ends where you see these little roots are, what I'll do is I'll put the roots in a little cup of water overnight just to kind of hydrate them a little bit, and then I will plant them in a pot and they will grow up. They will sprout, and I'll have more spring onions that I'm growing out on my patio that I can use the next time I need some. Now I'm thinking fruit scraps are another biggie, another waste that we just throw away because we don't realize there's a use for it. But let me show you what I've been doing. Since I've been on my Weight Watchers journey, I've been eating a lot of sliced apples. And what I will do is I will take an apple slicer, I will slice the apples, and then I will eat them, but it always leaves a nice little core in the center. So what I've been doing is saving the cores in this bag. So I've got a bag full of apple cores. And then I had an apple today, and it was huge, and I had all of it that I wanted. So rather than pitch this, I'm going to put these apple pieces in the bag, put these apple scraps back in the freezer, and when I get enough, I can make some apple jelly. How so? Well, you just put your apple peelings and your apple scraps in a pot, cover it with water, let it cook for so long until the apple juice kind of permeates the water, whatever, and then you strain out the apple pieces, add some sugar and some other things, and you can end up making apple jelly. So that way, I don't have to purchase apple jelly in the store. I can use my own apple scraps, my own sugar, my own jars, and I can end up with some beautiful apple jelly. This video is brought to you by Aprondiva. Pretty and practical, we believe that an apron can be a homemaker's best accessory. Visit us at www.aprondiva.com. Now, last week I made peach jam and peach conserve. Well, to make the peach jam and the peach conserve, I had to peel the peaches, and then there was a little bit of like peach pulp that I didn't use. So I put the peach peelings and whatever peach pulp was left in this bag, and then I am going to make some peach jelly. And again, instead of throwing away these fruit scraps and purchasing peach jam or peach jelly in the store, I can make my own. Let me show you the jam I made. This is a jar of peach jam that I made. It was so delicious. This is a jar of peach conserve. So like I said, I had a lot of peelings and scraps left over, and I'll make some peach jelly with that. And again, these are items I normally would have purchased, but by saving my peach scraps, I was able to save money by making my own. And another way that I'm saving money is making my own chicken broth. When I roast a chicken, I will put the bones of the chicken in a freezer bag, and when I get 2 or 3 bags, I will make chicken broth. What do you put when you make chicken broth? Well, you put in onions, carrots, and celery. So those scrapings that I have when I use carrots and celery and onions for other things, those leftovers, are perfect with the bones to make chicken broth. So I'm saving money pennies at a time. And granted, you might say, well, you're not saving very much. Well, maybe not, but over time, it all adds up. In today's economy, every dollar counts. And if I don't have to spend $10 or $15 purchasing chicken broth or vegetable broth, that's $10 or $15 that I can put towards something else. So tell me, how are you wasting food, and what can you do to try to save some money on that? So this is a making day for me. That's why I happened to start thinking about how so many homemakers waste food or waste things that can turn into good food items for them. So today I've got to make the vegetable broth, and I also need to make the chicken broth. And the biggest impetus for today is that I need to straighten out that freezer. So as I get things out of the freezer, then I'll get the chicken broth going in one pot, I'll get the vegetable broth going in another pot, and then we'll get the peach jelly going in another pot. And what am I making for dinner today? Roast chicken, which means I'm going to have more carrots, onions, and celery scrapings to put in my little freezer bag to make broth with later. So let's get that started. I'm also going to add a little fresh rosemary and a little fresh thyme. I love the taste of rosemary and thyme in chicken dishes and things like that. So this vegetable broth is going to be amazing. And there's a combination of carrots, onions, celery, green pepper, red and yellow bell pepper in here. Plus I added the black peppercorns. I don't usually add salt to my vegetable broth or chicken broth, just because when I'm cooking I'm adding salt and pepper and other things in that. I think I might drop in a little bit of dried sage though. I dried quite a bit of sage last year, and I like that flavor. So a little smushed garlic. Give it a good stir. Now I'm going to just let this simmer most of the day. And you can see all the carrot peelings, the onion skins. There's some yellow bell pepper and some red bell pepper pieces that are in there. So it ought to taste pretty good. It smells good already. So I've got 2 chicken carcasses here. And I thought I'd put this in the crock pot just because I didn't want the top of my stove completely tied up. I'm going to add a couple of carrots. An onion, some fresh rosemary, a bay leaf, a little bit of lemon and pepper seasoning. I like that spice with my chicken. And water to cover. And then I had some vegetable scraps in the freezer that I added to this. So this will probably cook for about 12 hours possibly. When I get the vegetable broth off the stove, I might transfer this over to the stove top in another pot. But right now, I didn't want to have the whole stove top taken up with those large pots. So I thought, let's start it here in the slow cooker. And that'll just really help to get all the flavor out. So I've got a couple chicken carcasses here, not only just the carcass, but also the skins. I just kind of saved everything. And a bunch of fresh parsley, stem and all. So I will have some chicken broth for pennies on the dollar made from scraps. So this is another way that I don't waste food. Okay. Now in full transparency, I had to switch out the stock pot. I always start with the pot that's too small, and I had so much liquid in the pot that when it came to a boil, it was bubbling over. So I switched it over and put it into this pot. So now that it's come to a boil, I'm going to let it simmer for the next 6 to 7 hours. Now, one way that I waste food is by not knowing what I have. That means I've not kept an accurate inventory. And that was brought close to home to me today. I went out to the freezer and I was looking for a turkey or pork tenderloin, and this bag just kind of fell out. And it said street chicken tacos, and in this bag was these taco shells, or I should say these tortillas, and they've got cheese and stuff all over them. But there was also this taco meat that was in the bag, covered with cheese and lettuce, and I had put it in the freezer to use later and forgot it was in there. So I thought, okay, I'm cooking that today because you You can only keep this kind of thing in the freezer for so long. So one way that you can become a no-waste kitchen is to know what you have, and you can only know what you have by keeping an accurate inventory. Now, one of the things that I've been putting off is taking care of this freezer. It's really at 6s and 7s, and at this point, I don't even know what's in there. And then my husband's been throwing things in there, either leftover fish innards that he wants to keep frozen until time for them to go out. And then there could be little bags of strawberry tops or different things like that that I've been keeping. And I like to keep what I'm cooking that week in here, so I need to get it sorted out so that I don't waste anything. So let's get that started. I know, can you say hot mess? So I'll take everything out so that I can see what's in there, what needs to be tossed, what I can use in broth or something like that, and then what needs to go back in. And I will admit, he looks for those on trash day. So on Wednesday night when I clean the fridge, he'll go through and he'll clear out any fish guts or fish innards so that they can be out for the trash man just for the day. Oh. I've been looking for sour cream. I didn't know I had this in there. Here's more chicken and vegetable scraps for broth. I think I'm going to put it in a freezer bag that I can vacuum seal, and then it'll be much more compact. See, more vegetable scraps. Now I'm going to leave these frozen vegetables in here because I don't want them to thaw out. However, I know I like to keep these on this shelf here. So I'm just going to go ahead and put those right there. And this ice cream, I'll put it here for now, and I'll look through what I've got over here, and then I'll come back and address those other shelves. Fish innards. Piece of cake. Chicken bones, and then strawberry tops. So I'm going to set these in the sink. And then as I get more of those, I can take care of them. I like to put these boxed meals at the top like that, so they're easily accessible. This is why I rarely buy fresh fish. My husband always has a freezer full. I'll put some here for him. I thought I'd let you see how much this is cooked down. You can see it started about right here, and now it's about there. And it's got another couple of hours to go. And one of the ways that we waste food, and I have been guilty of that myself, is that we either don't store it properly in the freezer or in our pantries. We keep it in the freezer too long and it gets freezer burn, and then it's no good to us. Or we store it in our pantry and we don't store it properly, and it either gets infested with bugs or it loses its flavor. So I'm going to get all of these meats that I had in the freezer that were starting to look a little less for the wear and get them in some vacuum sealed freezer bags. And I'll also show you how I deal with some dry goods. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the ways that we can waste food is when we put it in the freezer, we don't use it up soon enough or store it properly and it gets freezer burned. So I found this package of beef stew meat in the freezer, and I could tell that it's starting to get a little bit worse for the wear. So I'm going to make some beef stew tomorrow and use this up. However, I did repackage all of these other things except for this pizza dough. I don't know what I'm going to do with this pizza dough. Maybe I should try and make my own pizza this weekend. We'll see. But all these other things I repurposed or repackaged. And they're so much better for that. I'll be able to see what's in them and they'll be stored much better. So I'm going to get all these things in the freezer. And then here is my package of goodies for the next time I want to make chicken stock. Here's one of them that's ready to go. So I'm going to get all these things in the freezer, and I will certainly do a better job from now on of making sure that my things are stored properly. And I just realized I never did seal this one. So I better get that done. I use a lot of flour and cornmeal, so when it comes to storing those things, I either store them in mason jars or I will vacuum seal them. When it comes to sugar, I will store them in 5-gallon food safe containers or mason jars. When it comes to storing rice, the best option for long-term purposes is to store it in mylar bags. And you can use your clothes iron, or you can use your flat iron that you use on your hair to seal the bags. And one of the simplest ways to store rice properly is just put it in a glass jar. Add an oxygen absorber and put the lid on it. And this simple method will keep your rice shelf stable for about 5 years. So you don't want to make a food waste mistake of not storing your rice properly. There you go. To make this gravy, I'm just going to take a little flour, whisk in a little water. Now I'm going to pour some of the broth off of that chicken neck. And now I'm going to pour that broth with the flour mixture in here. And going to take the chicken neck out for a second. Give that a good stir. I'll get a little bit of the broth off of the chicken. Then I'm going to add a little bit more water because that flour will thicken up as it heats up. So this is the chicken broth that I made, and I'm going to keep these two out because I'm going to make, I believe, a chicken pot pie later in the week, and I normally use anywhere from 4 to 6 cups of chicken broth for that. And then these 3 are going in the freezer. And notice I'm using the wide mouth jars for that purpose, and I'll show you why. One of the things that I've been talking about is storing your foods properly. And if you freeze broth or things like that in regular mouth jars, they get above this little hinge there, and then sometimes it causes the jar crack. And I've lost a couple jars of broth because the jar cracked. Now, you're probably saying, well, if the jar cracked, you can just lift the glass off and still use the broth. Probably so, but I just didn't want to take that chance. So when it comes to freezing your broth and you want to store things properly, store them in the wide mouth jars. And if you look at the information on the ball canning jar boxes, it will talk about freezer safe for the wide mouth jars, but it does not say that on the regular mouth jars. So I'm going to get these 3 in the freezer and these in the fridge for me to use later in the week. And then this is something that I use to help separate the oil or the fat out of the broth. And then I've marked the tops of these jars with these labels, and these labels are amazing. They're dissolvable. So when I put them on, I wrote on here that it's chicken broth. And then when I use it up and I'm ready to use that top for something else, I just put it in the dish, soak, wash it, give it a little scrub, and the label just dissolves right away. So it certainly is a savings there. So I'm going to get these in the freezer and get these in the fridge. And the vegetable broth that I made that you saw me put in jars temporarily, I am freezing in freezer bags. So what I've done is, like, I'll take a container like this, and then I will put the freezer bag down in the container, and then I will fill it with 2 cups of vegetable broth. And then once it freezes, I will take it out of the container and I will squeeze any additional air out. And then I can store these in the freezer like that, and they're stackable because I use these containers to freeze them with. So that's how I'm storing those. I don't have enough jars to use in the freezer in that way, but let me show you something else that I do have. I have some of these ball plastic jars, and this is what I will tend to use for my chicken broth when I have enough, but most of these are already occupied with chicken broth that I made earlier. So since I was making it today, I didn't want to split it up and have some in these containers and some not. I know, I'm a little extra. But anyway, that's what I'm doing with the chicken broth. So tell me, what are the ways you waste food, and what can you do differently to interrupt that cycle? I'm doing things differently by saving my foods. So tell me, What are the ways that you waste food, and what can you do differently to interrupt that cycle? I'm doing things differently by saving my fruit scraps and making my own jams and jellies. I am saving my vegetable scraps and making my own chicken broth. What can you do? Tell me in the comment section below. Now don't forget, when you leave here, go on over to Ebony, Ivy, and Thyme in the Kitchen and check out the tips that Leona has to share with you. She will have more information to help you move to a zero waste kitchen. And please sign up for my Homemaking with Purpose newsletter. It will give you more tips and tricks and inspiration to help make your homemaking journey easier. And if you hate to do laundry, please, please, please do sign up for my laundry masterclass. That way you can be the first to know when it goes live. For more homemaking and homekeeping inspiration, click here.